Why is there so much poverty around the world? If you look at Africa, over half of Africa, over 50% of Africans don't have clean water or even electricity, which is insane. If you look at South Asia from India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, we're seeing complete poverty, rubbish everywhere, polluted waters, just absolutely poverty. India itself, even though it's a huge country with a huge GDP, the per capita GDP is less than 2,000 US dollars a year, which is absolutely crazy when you compare it to places like Australia, which is probably around 55,000 US dollars per year. If you look at even Latin America, Indonesia, most places around the world are poor. In fact, m- less than 14% of the Western world, which is the Western world, are living in what we would call prosperity in East Asia, Singapore, Taiwan, South Asia. But most of the world is living in poverty. And in fact, they're living in such poverty that we're seeing millions of people from around the world trying to migrate into Western society or even East Asian societies like Japan. People are desperate. If you turn on the TV just recently, you would have seen tens of thousands of Moroccans desperately crossing the borders into Ceuta, Spain, hoping that the UN is going to grant them asylum and allow them into the European world where they can make some decent money. We're seeing chaos erupt around the world. We're seeing the far right groups raising protests through Belfast, Ireland, people's heads being cut off, rape happening, just devastation around Europe. And I travel to Europe a lot. And I'll be honest, it's getting very dangerous, especially for women. Large parts of Sweden and right, UK, you name it. The world is going crazy. What the hell is going on? These are questions that really plagued me when I was growing up, ever since I was probably 17. My dad came from Burma, moved to Australia as an immigrant, met my mother, who's also an immigrant, and I came out. And I grew up as a privileged Westerner. But even though I grew up in Australia, I did grow up in a very poor environment. I grew up in a welfare community. But back then, had you asked me, hey, Sean, why is so much of the world in poverty? Why are you yourself even living in what I would call back then a dysfunctional society? Or, back then, I'm not going to lie, we grew up with a lot of, there was a lot of drugs around, crime around. I grew up with a lot of ethnics, Aboriginal people, and so on, a lot of minority groups in Australia in welfare communities. And also, white Australians, Bogan, they would say probably white trash Australia. And there was just so much social, what's the word? Social dysfunction, I would say, crime, drugs, and all that, that a lot of my community, and a lot of the people, friends that I grew up with, had a deep hatred towards Western civilization, white people, or the government. We actually blamed our own poverty and our own situation on the elites. And had you asked me again those very same questions, why is India in poverty? Why is Bangladesh in poverty? Why is most of Africa in poverty? And so on. I would have replied and said something like this. Well, most of Africa went to South Asia, and all of these people want to migrate to the Western world because of Western imperialism, white supremacy, central banking, and just general imperialism. And we extracted their resources. And because of that, that's what we're seeing. And that would have been my extremely ignorant answer at the time. But that's the reason why I'm doing this video, because over the past 25 years, I've dedicated my life to a few things. Number one, it's making it out the hood. I grew up in Perth, Western Australia, in Armidale, again, a welfare community surrounded by crime and such. And I put a lot of effort into making it out that hood life. And I did. Thank God for Australia giving me free education. I managed to make it into the university, and I studied economics and finance. From there, trying to break out my social groups and the things that I had to go through as a person who grew up in a very hood culture. And I made it out of Australia. I became a financial advisor in Australia. And then I eventually left Australia for the Middle East. And I lived in the Middle East, where I again worked in finance. And I spent 7 years there. in the Middle East, traveling through the Middle East, UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Oman, you name it, just really diving deep and getting to know the culture. What is the Islamic culture? Why is Dubai so successful? What is this culture? Just asking thousands of questions because I had so much passion to understand one, become wealthy, make it out the hood, and understand what creates poverty. That was my mission in life. And then after living in the UAE, after living in the Middle East, moving to East Asia after 7 years, spending time in East Asia, Singapore, Japan, Taiwan, you name it, moving creative business for 12 years, really diving deep and understanding Confucian societies. What was it that made Singapore prosperous? There's no natural resources here. This was colonized. What is happening here? What is happening? Why are they successful? Why is Japan quite successful? South Korea, what is happening? And what are the advantages and disadvantages of their cultures? Really diving deep into the cultural understanding to find out what creates a prosperous or dysfunctional society. And then after that, finally, now becoming a financially abundant individual who I am today, I'm retired in South Asia. I made enough money and I've done extremely well for myself because I dedicated myself to understand money, working in finance. I've managed to get to a position where I can retire. I can live abundantly. I spend 3 months in Europe. I spend a month in the United States, 2 months in Australia, South Asia, and so on. I travel around the world and it is incredible. And I finally got to a point where I made it, and that's why I'm doing this video today. I'm doing this video because it's my way of giving back, but mainly because I'm worried. I'm worried because as I look around, I see a lot of friends, a lot of people back home, just in Western society in general, not even Western society, all societies. There is a deep hatred for Western civilization and Western imperialism. There is a very frightening thing that I'm seeing, which is what I had as a younger man, the deep hatred. And the we blame poverty on Western society. And I find it very scary. And that's why I'm doing this video, because I'm hoping that this is my way of giving back. I'm hoping that people are going to listen to what I've found, once believing what you believe, to where I am now, to find out why are some societies poor and why are some societies wealthy. I grew up in the hood. Why was we poor in the hood? Was it the government's fault? Actually, you would probably find out that it's not the government's fault. It's the hood culture that's happening. Anyway, this video is not about culture. I'm going to talk about more broader societies. But by the end of this video, I want something to happen. I want people to understand and stop blaming Western civilization, Western imperialism, white supremacy, and all of these things on. I want them to find out the true cause. Because as long as you're like me, the younger me, and as long as you're blaming Western civilization, capitalism, and all this leftist wokeism ideology, you're never really going to help the situation. You're not going to help the poor people, right? You're not going to help third world countries because you're not nailing what's actually causing it. And secondly, you're going to bring the society down with you. So that's what I'm going to do for you today. I'm going to break down the answer so you have a good understanding of what creates poverty, because I've been traveling and I've been diving deep into it. Now, when I do answer this question of what creates economic prosperous societies or what creates economically dysfunctional or poverty, I want you to keep in mind that that is a huge question, right? There is no one singular answer to answer that question. Huge questions like that deserve very complex and nuanced answers. There are thousands, almost millions of factors and nuances that go into creating a poor Jamaica or a poor Bangladesh. There's just so much. But what we can do is we can skip all of those nuances and go back down the butterfly effects. We can skip the economic policies that the government's put in place. We could skip the government, whether it's communism, socialism, capitalism. We can skip all of that. And we can go to the root cause and find out what the problem is with that. And the root cause that causes, and what I found causes poverty, is the way our morality system works. Now, a lot of you right now might be going, what the hell are you talking about? What the hell does our morality system have to do with producing economic and prosperous societies? And I was very much like you before I moved overseas. I thought when I was growing up in Australia that every single one of us saw what was right and wrong in the exact same ways, right? We all had this inner kind of guided system that said, this is wrong and this is right. And we're born, I thought we were born with these inner guiding systems, but unfortunately, that's just not the case, right? We are part of 40. If you're Western, if you're from a Western place and you think, like, for instance, you can hear me talk. You can see the way I dress, the way I'm talking, and so on. I'm talking in English. If you become Westernized, you make up 14% of the world's population. And you have a morality system that is based on guilt and innocence. So when we do something wrong, we think, well, that's not right to do, or that is wrong to do, or this is good to do. We feel like in a sense of guilty conscience. Now, you will be surprised that most of the entire world doesn't operate like that, which is insane. Most of the entire world operates at a very primal level, which we also Westerners used to operate on, which is the shame and honor-based morality system. So that's what I'm going to do for you today. I want to explain these different morality systems for you. Guilt and innocence, which is Western or what we have, and then shame and honor, which is what most of the entire rest of the world has. And then I'm going to break it down for you of what type of societies these systems produce: economic prosperous or economically poor. I'll be back. All right. So what I'm going to do for you today is I'm going to break down the morality systems of each country or each civilization. So let's look at sub-Saharan Africa. All right. We got sub-Saharan Africa. We've got the Middle Eastern Islamic world. We've got the South Asian world, and we've also got the Latin America world. Now, I want to group these because if I actually went through each civilization as one, it was going to take us too long, right? So we're going to group these, and the reason why we're grouping these is, and this is where we're going to see most of the poverty throughout the world. Sub-Saharan Africa is in extreme poverty. Most of the Middle East is in extreme poverty. South Asia is this extreme poverty. Most of Latin America. Yes, there are exclusions to the case, right? There are very wealthy people that live in Sub-Saharan Africa. Nigeria, there are billionaires that live in Nigeria, right? There's billionaires that live in the Middle East. But for the point of this, we're going to leave those wealthy people out because we're looking at the majority of the population. But also for the point of this, we're going to leave the Gulf states out. The Gulf states meaning the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, and so on. The reason why we're leaving it out because these societies operate on a different kind of system. They're the exceptions to the rules. So we can address that in another video. What is it that makes them so successful? And I'm going to talk about that in future because it's very interesting. But for now, we're going to talk about these societies. Sub-Saharan Africa, the Middle East, including North Africa, right? South Asia, Latin America. This is a civilization that operates on an honor and shame-based morality system. Sorry, I got my writing. Then we want to look at East Asia, right? So we've got Japan, we've got South Korea, we've got Singapore, Taiwan, and so on. East Asia here, right? They operate on a similar morality system, but different. And then we've got, obviously, Western civilization, right? The West, which is Europe, America, Australia, Canada, and so on. And this civilization, obviously, is a civilization of its own. So that civilization obviously comes from the ancient Greeks to the Romans, passed down through the British, the Romans, going to London, then the British for the Germanic tribes coming in, and then passing down to Australia, America, and so on. So that's not where my bloodline comes from. My bloodline actually comes from South Asia because my dad is from Burma, but we migrated into this civilization, and now my personality, my culture comes from there. So we're going to talk about the different cultures and what each morality system has, how it's based on, and what type of economies and societies they produce, and why do these kind of morality systems that they use produce poor societies. So let's talk about this society first, right? Now, all of us, even Western society, we used to operate on honor these. And it's called a shame and honor-based morality system. So we catch honor or shame to a few things. So they still do to this very day. Number one, they attach honor to religion, right? They also attach honor to family or tribe. Also, female purity. And then last but not least, caste systems. So the way their morality system works is very different. So their morality system is based heavily on reputation. So you have to keep the reputation of the religion alive. So, for instance, if you said something to insult their religion, you bring shame to their religion. Or if you said something against the religion, you can bring shame to yourself. And that, once you bring shame, needs to be corrected, right? Then you've got family and tribe, right? The tribe reputation, the family reputation means more than individuals. In Western societies where we're from, we put individual rights first before tribal rights. In these societies, family and tribal reputation, the honor of the family and tribal reputation comes first. Also, female purity is huge in their societies. A woman is meant to be pure in nature. And if she abuses that purity, she brings shame again to the family. And then last but not least, caste systems, or being part of a social group of castes, especially places like India, you need to bring honor to that caste system. And if you even out married to another caste, you'll bring dishonor to that caste system. So what I want to talk about is how different that is. And I'm going to use a very extreme example just so you understand how different that these systems are compared to the Western civilization. And I want to actually use a real life example of something that just happened in Pakistan. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to imagine a few tribes, right? Let's say there's three tribes in these societies. And one man from this tribe goes over to this tribe and does something very bad, grapes one of the girls from this tribe. He grapes her. Now, in Western society, in our society, everyone in that society here, would be furious. We would first run to the girl that got raped, and we would say, I'm so sorry. We feel empathy towards her. Secondly, we were gonna want revenge. We would our morality system, we need to have justice for this girl. This guy either needs to get put down or sent to jail to punish him for what he has done. But in these shame and honor-based morality systems, that's not how the morality system works. What initially comes first is not the individual, but the tribe and the family reputation. According to these people, now, guys, keep in mind, this is all of us. All of our ancestors used to work on this. It just, we overcame it. What will happen in this situation is that this tribe now is not necessarily worried about the girl and what she's been through. They're worried about the tribe of reputation, because now that that girl has been great, it's brought dishonor to the tribe. She has brought dishonor to the tribe because now this tribe looks weak, right? Which means that other tribes will now see that tribe as weak. And many thousands of years ago, that was very important. Having the tribal representation preserved as strong and honorable meant a lot more than the girl that got grapes. The reason being is because if you don't protect the honor, the reputation of the tribe, other tribes will go, whoa, that tribe is weak. We can just go in there, kill their men, take everything, and then take their women. And that tribe would then integrate with that tribe. And that's literally what would happen in the old days. So keeping the tribal representation and making sure that they don't look weak, that's their first priority. So they need to correct the first priority of the tribal representation. So what they just recently did in Japan, in Pakistan, and they do it through Bangladesh, in rural parts of India, rural parts of Pakistan, and so on, Afghanistan. It still happens today, guys. They will force the graper to marry the victim because in their culture, they see it that it's okay to grape the wife because that's okay in their religion. Now, if they marry the two, it means that the grape cancels out, right? So therefore, their honor of the tribe is now restored because no one got actually raped or violated because he was allowed to. That's just using an example of how the morality systems work. They don't think about the individual first. We do in the West, and it's very hard for us to process. They think about the religion first, the family and tribal reputation first, the female purity first, and the caste system first. The individual comes second. Now, this is a very extreme example of how much of these societies work, right? So you're probably not going to see something like this happen in mainstream Mumbai or big cities in Pakistan. Hopefully not. It's more rural, right? It's more the rural areas that you're going to see these things happen. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't represent a piece of the bigger problem with the puzzle. Now, what I'm going to explain to you now is why that these different morality systems, which they're so foreign to us, what type of economies they produce, right? So now with that, we know that they have a shaman honor-based morality system. They put religion first, family first, female purity first, and caste systems first. Yes, there are nuances within all of these different societies, but we're just grouping them together to make it easy to understand. So let's imagine this in a society, we need different businesses, right? People need to have different businesses to create jobs, to create prosperity, and then we need governance to oversee that society, right? So now what I want you to do is I want you to imagine different tribes in this society managed to get from this tribe managed to get elected into government because they are the majority tribe in the entire population. Now, what happens is in Western society, once you get elected in, preferably, well, this is not all the time, but majority of the time, we believe in meritocracy. So if someone needs a job done, we're going to give it to the best performer, right? If I'm running a business, even today, because I'm Western, I'm going to look for the person who's going to generate me the biggest income, who has the biggest skills. That's the way I'm thinking. And because we come from a high trust situation or high trust environment, I'm going to give a job to a stranger because I believe it's going to be better for the company or government. Unfortunately, in these societies of shame and honor-based morality systems, they put family and tribe first. Once someone from that tribe makes it into government, what are they going to do? Are they going to give the job for the person to build a bridge or the person to run the schools or to their tribe or family, or are they going to give it to other tribes? Obviously, they're going to give it to the tribe that they're from, right? And that's where the tribalism comes in from it. Unfortunately, that has huge problems when it comes to creating institutions for any societies. And me living in these societies for such a long time now, especially in South Asia, moving through South Asia and really diving, trying to start business and understanding it, you realize very quickly that relationships mean everything. From protection to being protected to trying to build everything. You can't rely on anyone. Everyone is going to try and rip you off if you're not part of the tribe. So if you want to create a good business anywhere in South Asia, for instance, India, Pakistan, you need to make sure that people become your friend, right? You need to become part of the family or tribe because that is the only way you're going to not get ripped off. So unfortunately, with this kind of culture, this kind of shame and honor-based culture, it doesn't allow for institutions like we have in the West to scale at large and in trustable ways. And guys, keep in mind when I say this, not to say that corruption and nepotism doesn't happen in Western civilization. It does. but in the frequency in which it recurs is completely different, right? You're talking about it actually, it's frowned upon in Western civilization, whereas in these societies, if John is the president of this country and he doesn't give his family or tribe a job as the educational minister, well, that's going to be a very, very big issue for him because now he's broken the honor of the tribe. He is expected to do nepo, to favor his tribe. Expected. And if he doesn't, he's going to feel the full repercussions of that. If he turns his back on any of these things, he's going to feel the full repercussions of that. So that is why societies in these places from the Middle East, right, from Morocco, North Africa, and so on, from sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, even Latin America, they're so infused with a shame and honor-based morality system that they can never produce systems that have trust because there's always favoritism in every way, which is very sad, right? And I've been thinking about how does these societies, for instance, India, where everyone is ripping everyone off, how do you get to a point where trust can be you can't scale trust in these societies as long as they operate within these tribal realities. And that's an unfortunate truth. And that is what produces poverty in these countries. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because I've lived around the world. And like I said, I always blamed Western imperialism. But Western imperialism, white supremacy, and all of these things. And I always imagined while I was growing up in Australia, no, these people are just trying their best. They're just like us. Unfortunately, that, like I said, that's just not the case, right? They operate very differently to us. And the way they operate and their culture in which they operate is obviously going to produce vastly different outcomes, right? If you're constantly expected to favor your tribe, people from your religion, your people from your family, or caste systems, you can't even marry outside your caste system. How do you expect to have a functioning society? You're not. It's impossible. It's not like the West. You can't have equality, individualism. You can't have none of that. And that is why so many people from these systems beg to live in the West, right? It is not the Western fault. Now, what I want to do now is talk about East Asia, because that's very interesting. Because East Asia, if you look at Singapore, even China, guys, China, Taiwan, South Korea, I mean, these East Asians have completely smashed these guys out the ballpark. The Gulf states aside, right? We're going to talk about that. But these guys are the guys that are trying to migrate into these two societies that are desperate. They're running from their own culture, their own shame and honor-based culture. But what's fascinating is I lived 12 years in East Asian society, and East Asian societies prospered. So the question I had when I was there was, why the hell are they doing so well? What are they doing? Because actually, believe it or not, they have a shame and honor-based morality system as well. They're not like Westerners. They're very different. They attach honor. The difference is that unlike these guys who attach honor to tribe, religion, women's purity, and caste systems and so on, these guys have a very different attachment to honor. So they attach attachment to education, right? East Asians, if you're from Japan, South Korea, so on, they attach it to education, which is, you can see it evidently. Even when I was growing up in Australia, you can see the way they study. I mean, I lived in Singapore for 12 years, absolutely phenomenal. These guys are just, they study, they really live for it. That's just kind of sad in a way because I can see the pressure they're under, but that is where they honor. And if they do want an education, they bring honor to their family and to the society. The second thing they attach honor to is basically social harmony. Being a great participant. So if you go to East Asia, if you go to Japan, I spent a lot of time in Japan. Go to Taiwan, go to South Korea, Singapore, you will notice that these places are much more safer than Western civilization. These guys are just doing astronomical, and everyone keeps their head down and does everything. And that is because they quote the collective population. They attach honor to social harmony to the collective population before individual. So their morality system is wired differently. In Western society, no, I come first. What I believe is I honor my own self, my own expression, whereas they don't. They will be quiet just to preserve the social harmony, even if what they believe is out of question, right? So they attach that, and then they also attach it to success, right? And then also good public citizen. So their shame and honor-based morality systems actually operate the same, but the honor and shame is attached to different things. Again, attached to education, social harmony, success, being a good public servant, right? To the government. They really appreciate the government. They won't say anything bad about the government because if they do, that's bringing dishonor to or shame to the government, which is a no-no. You got to bring honor. And that is why these guys just excel because they attach their honor to something extremely different. Now, for both of these, right, there's different pros and cons to the shame and honor-based morality systems. Like, for instance, in South Asia, Middle East, Latin America, even Sub-Saharan Africa, North Africa, if you go to these places, because their honor and shame-based morality systems is attached to family and tribe, when you go there, their hospitality is at another level. Like, if you go to the Middle East and go in an Arab family, man, they're gonna bring you in and they're gonna just dish out like a whole table full of food. And I've had the most lovely experiences in these societies, and they will gift you presents. It's really about relationship building also, but they really value community, and that's one thing. And if you go to India, you'll notice that a lot of Indian immigrants that come from these very societies struggle in Western or East Asian societies because they miss the warmth of their community. So they all have their pros and cons. Whereas in East Asia, it can be very cold, right? Because they prioritize, because they prioritize um, social harmony first, right? That's where the honor is to not abuse the social hierarchy. Also, they attach it to elderly as well, respect for elderly. Uh, because they prioritize social harmony a lot, it means that it removes the intimacy because there's no authenticity or honest communication between the society. So they do suffer from, say, depression. But again, this morality system is by far going to produce a much better economic output than these systems, which is filled with corruption and nepotism. Again, remember, corruption and nepotism favoring your family or tribe is not seen as wrong, right? You're allowed to rip off another tribe to benefit your own tribe. That is good, right? That's your morale. Your tribe comes first. So if you look at, for example, Somalians in what we're seeing, and I think is it Michigan? I can't remember. In America somewhere. I mean, if you look at Somalians, and no disrespect to my Somalian friends, but as a culture, if you look at Somalians in the US, 80% of them are on welfare. Even Islamic people, Muslim immigrants in the UK, approximately 75% of Muslims are on welfare. And a lot of these guys, and you'll see it in the NDIS, they start scamming the system. And I'm being racist saying that. It just is the fact. Somalians were scamming multi-million-dollar scams on health programs and such. But you have to remember that these guys aren't doing it because they think it's wrong. They're doing it because they think it's good, right? To them, giving their tribe money is what you do. Scamming the system is what we do. In India, the red tape for opening businesses and all that, you have to be corrupt. You have to have nepotism. You have to scam your way to the top and put your tribe first. Otherwise, you're not going to make it, right? So those morality systems produce vastly different economic outcomes. I mean, think about this. Have you ever thought why so much of South Asia is just filled with rubbish? Do you know why India is so full with rubbish? Is that because of colonialism or Western imperialism? Is someone holding a gun to their head saying, throw the rubbish in the river. No, what's happening is because they attach honor to caste. And this goes thousands of years back. And a lot of people blame colonialism for their caste system, but it's wrong. It's actually infused with the Hindu religion, in their Hindu religion. The caste system says that everyone has a job. And if the lowest caste job is to pick up rubbish, that's their job. So the reason why India suffers from a problem with rubbish at the core of the subconscious is they believe that it's out of their league to put it in the bin. So just in that shame and honor-based morality system creates completely different outcomes in every society. So does this. And East Asia, they're doing so well. Singapore, Japan, no natural resources at all. Japan dropped 2 atomic bombs on it. Hiroshima and Nagasaki got flattened. Hundreds of thousands got killed. Hundreds of thousands. Within 2 years, they built the city back better than ever. Singapore, no natural resources, colonized. Malaysia kicked them out. How did they do it? It's because of their culture. East Asian culture, education, social harmony, attach it to success, public servants, all of that contributes to making good societies. Are there downfalls of it? Absolutely. But that is the reason why certain societies produce poverty and why these societies are so desperate. When you turn on the TV and you see tens of thousands of Moroccans trying to escape Morocco, there's no war in Morocco. They're escaping corruption, nepotism, and disfavorable economic conditions. And those economic conditions are created by morality systems. Now, let's talk about Western society, where we come from. If you're watching this, you're most likely Western, like me, right? Even though my dad is from Burma, I grew up eating curries and all of that. I'm Western. You can hear it in my voice. I'm speaking English to you, the way I think. And what actually trips me out, living in these different societies for the past 20 years, is just how Western I am. You know, I've got friends that are from Sudan, Ethiopia, you name it, from around the world, but they're all Western, and a lot of the guys have a deeper, more Aussie accent than me, mate. They talk full on Aussie, and they're like black from Africa. If you ask them, where do you come from? They will say, well, I come from Sudan or Ethiopia or whatever. But they're talking about their physicality, right? But if I ask them, well, where does your personality come from, right? So you have a completely different morality system to these people. I mean, I live there. When you live with these people for years and you get to know the culture, you realize we are so different, like extremely different in how we see things, how we value, should we speak up? How we see women, what is individual rights, what is freedom, do we believe in democracy? All of these things, we're so vastly different. And my friends don't realize it, but more than anything, they are descendants of Western civilization, right? For instance, do you believe in secularism? Secularism is the belief that religion and government should be separate. Now, a lot of these societies don't believe that, right? Why do we believe that? Well, that also goes back to the Greeks, the Romans, and Christianity. All that came down and poured down into us. In fact, it's fascinating. The other day, I said to a friend of mine, I said, you're a loose cannon, because he's a bit of a wild guy. You're a loose cannon, I said to him. And it got me thinking, where the hell did that saying come from? You're a loose cannon. Well, I looked it up. And when I say loose cannon, everyone who's watching this right now can understand exactly what I'm saying. But when I looked it up, I realized that being a loose cannon hundreds of years ago, if there was a loose cannon, if you didn't tie the cannon down in the boat, all our ancestors that came over from Europe and saw it, if you didn't tie the cannon, which was hundreds of kilos of iron and steel, the cannon would rock and smash the boat open and probably kill people. Hence the phrase loose cannon. Now, I'm using this phrase today without even understanding where it's coming from. And most of you guys, if you're from the West and you're watching this video right now, you don't realize a lot of the mechanics that you have in your head, what you perceive to be right or wrong, are morality systems. It's not it's literally it comes from here. It's not normal. In fact, if you're Western, you only make up 14% of the population, meaning that the way you think, process information, the way you were educated at school is only 14% of the population. And I'll just give you another example. I lived in East Asia for 12 years. And in these societies, you attach honor to the elderly, right? So you can't question the older people because they are the top people. You can't do that. If you do question older people in these societies, you bring shame and therefore you're a bad person. So people don't do that. Uh, and the problem with that is in their education system, the teachers are older. So when the teacher goes to class in these East Asian societies, when they teach the kids to say, don't ask me questions, this is what we need to learn, this is what I'm telling you to learn. So the education system teaches the East Asian obedience culture, and it takes away creative thinking and opinions. And in Western civilization, I grew up in Australia, so the teacher, I remember thinking back to my teachers, say, so Sean, what do you think about that? What is your thoughts on this? And in Western civilization, our education system really encourages independent thought, creative thinking, and so on. And that's why Western civilization is very individualistic thinking, very creative thinking. We're taught to break rules because we really prioritize the individual. So that's what I want to get to right now. Western civilization, how do we work and what is the difference? Why are we the exception? 14% of the population only thinks like this. We think in a guilt and innocent way. So when we do something, we either feel guilty, if we do something, we feel innocence. And that guilt and innocence emotions that we feel is heavily large based on what we've been taught as right or wrong since we were young. And that largely comes from hundreds or even thousands of years of Christianity. So this is Christian civilization, whether you like it or not. Western civilization from the Romans, which is pagan. So the Greeks pagan, Romans pagan. Jesus Christ coming, Christian civilization, the church, fighting the wars, all that coming down to where we are today in Western civilization, the thousands of years of wars and ideas exchanging, the Renaissance, the Enlightenment and such, to where we are today, that is based heavily on Christian principles. And Christian principles created a different morality system. Now, keep in mind, I'm not Christian, right? So I don't know too much about Christianity, but what I do know is that this is a fact. You can look it up, go on ChatGPT or whatever you want to ask it something like, what is a guilt and innocence-based morality system compared to a shame and honor-based morality system? And what does Christianity and Jesus Christ have to do with the way Western systems work? And you'll find out that the guilt and innocent morality systems that we use are very much like your loose cannon that I explained to you before. We're using the morality mechanics without even realizing it. Even though we've lost Christianity, the mechanics, the operating systems are still operating in us. And essentially, this system that we have allowed for a few things. Number one, it promoted individual responsibility, right? So we look at society as individualistic. When someone does something wrong, it doesn't bring shame to the family or tribe. We just judge the person. You're a prick for doing that, right? We're sending you to jail. I mean, if I do something wrong, I'm Western. I don't think, man, I'll think, what is my dad going to think about me? He's probably but that's not the first thing that comes to mind. The first thing that comes to mind is me. How am I going to think about myself? I'm going to be a low scumbag if I did that, right? Anyway, so this morality system is very different. It doesn't need to monitor. No external people need to monitor, right? There needs to be no monitoring system because we monitor ourselves. But anyway, what it did, it allowed for something to really flourish in Western society, and that is called trust. Now, I can go to someone in Western society and say, hey, I need you to do this for a jog. And the chances that they're going to do the job and we shake our hands, even though we do need regulation and police and all that, majority speaking, compared to the countries, third world countries are here, there's a lot higher trust. And that's why they call us a high trust society. Because of our guilt and innocence-based morality systems, we're able to produce vast scaling institutions. We no longer see tribes. We overcame it. And because of that, we're able to scout institutions, whether it's education departments, regulation, finance departments, and so on. And corruption can't necessarily take hold of it because there's too many individuals monitoring itself. Not to say corruption doesn't exist in Western society, it does, and that is hands down the truth. But to say in which the frequency it occurs, it just can't be compared. In these societies, corruption is expected. And I've lived in these societies, so I know what I'm talking about. It is expected in every single deal. If you're trying to open a business in India, you are expected to be corrupt. You are expected, right? In these societies, Western societies, you expected not to be corrupt. East Asian societies, which is China's still very corrupt, but that's a whole nother story. Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore, they overcame corruption through a fear-based mechanism, right? It was very different to a Christianity guilt and innocence-based mechanism. So they used, when Lee Kuan Yew came in, you can actually see his videos on YouTube, and fascinating, incredible man. That's why he produced such an incredible society. He came in with all these ideas to create Singapore for what it is. But that is another video that I want to address to you. But my point being, guys, is you need to understand from a civilizational perspective, what is happening across the world, why we're seeing so much migration, drama in the Western world. We're saying it's not working, right? Multiculturalism isn't working. It was working when I was growing up because multiculturalism was, when I was growing up in the 90s, us minorities were only like less than freaking 10%. Once it starts hitting 30, that's when it starts becoming real minorities. And what's happening is you're going to import people. And not to say that everyone from these societies thinks that way, because there's an upper class in these systems that are very westernized and have our morality systems as well. But when we start importing millions of people from this situation into the Western world, now you're talking about mixtures of moralities, right? Some people prioritize nepotism, meritocracy. In the West, we don't. So there's clashes in culture. When a culture attaches honor to their religion, and you insult that religion with your free speech that we attach honor to Western civilization, that is like mixing oil with water. You can see a clash, right? In Western society, you're allowed to insult anyone you like. South Park insults Jesus whenever they want, and no one says a thing because we believe in individual and free speech. But when you bring cultures that have shame and honor-based into other societies, you're going to see corruption, nepotism, more littering. We're seeing that. You're going to see a lot of these problems, and it's natural that there is going to be a clash. Now, there is a way to make multiculturalism work, and Singapore is proof of that, and also Dubai, the UAE is proof of that. But that's another video on its own, right? So they handle multiculturalism. That's going to take about an hour to explain. But the point being is, guys, that different morality systems produce vastly different economic outcomes. And the problem is a lot of these people in these societies, East Asian societies, don't give a damn about colonialism. You think Singaporeans, do you think South Koreans care about what the Japanese did to them or what the Americans did to them? No, man, they just think their head. These guys really care. They blame what the Western civilization, well, a lot of these guys, Western civilization, on their downfall, when it's actually the morality systems. The reason why I'm teaching this today is because I do worry. And I want people to wake up. And, I'm in a place that I've really dived deep into find out these answers of why these societies are poor. It has nothing to do with Western imperialism. Zero. It's zero. It's culture. It's morality. It's a morality system, like I explained to you. And it's very important that people realize this for two reasons. Number one, you need to be proud of Western civilization because it's a phenomenal civilization. Everything that the West has given us, from the technology, the medicine. I mean, we are a phenomenal society. The arts, the entertainment, Terminator 2, Jurassic Park, our judicial system, healthcare, you name it. It is incredible. It's no wonder so many people want to move into this society, right? Why my dad moved and why my dad said I'm so lucky, and I get it now. I'm not lucky because they're wealthy. They're wealthy because of their culture. And I'm lucky because I adopted that culture. So it's very important to be proud of being Western. And if we don't, if we, another thing is, if we don't understand what creates poverty, we're not helping these guys, right? All the guys in Morocco that are trying to get into Spain now, they don't even know why they're poor, right? They're poor because of the morality system. If there was meritocracy, if there was no corruption, if there was no nepotism, if they didn't have the honor and shame based morality system that they had, well, then they would prosper. There's nothing stopping them from doing that, right? Just like Singapore, they smashed it out the ballpark because of their morality systems. So by lying to ourselves, we're doing two things. We're bringing down Western civilization, and then we're hurting these guys. Because these guys need to wake up to themselves to fix their own problems. Anyways, I hope that helps. This is my actual first video on economics. I'm planning on doing a bit more. Economics, understanding what creates prosperity or wealth is huge, man. I love to understand culture. And I hope that helps. If you want to leave a comment, go ahead. Always be respectful. If you have any ideas, that's what we're here for, to exchange ideas. And have a great day.